All right, ready for a deep dive today. We'll be jumping into the slight edge, digging into those small everyday actions that can lead to some pretty outrageous success.
Sounds good to me.
So I have to say, going through these excerpts you sent, I was really struck by the way Jeff Olson brings his ideas to life. Like, did you know he used to be a professional wrestler?
No way. I did not know that.
Yeah, Gorgeous George, that was his wrestling name.
Wow. Okay, that's kind of awesome, actually.
Right. And he weaves these personal stories in so seamlessly with historical examples, business lessons.
Yeah.
It really makes his point stick.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. He has a knack for making you rethink those assumptions we often have about success. It's not always about some massive overnight change. It's about consistency, those almost mundane choices we make every day that build on each other.
It's like that saying, with a compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world.
Exactly. I think he actually uses the example of a penny doubling its value every day for a month. The results are mind-blowing.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And speaking of things that start small, and then Bam Olson uses this great analogy of the water hyacinth. Have you heard of that?
I'm vaguely familiar, yeah.
So it's this plant that doubles in size every single day. For the first week, you barely notice it, but then it takes over the whole pond. It's a powerful image.
Right, it really is. It makes you stop and think about those days when you feel like you haven't accomplished much.
Exactly. Like, what if those small actions you're taking are actually building towards something amazing? It's all about perspective.
100%. And I think that's what Olson is trying to get at with that whole comparison to, well, being a beach bum. It's not that there's one right path, but the choices we make each day determine which direction we're headed.
It's easy to get stuck in that beach bum mentality, though,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to those daily habits like, I don't know, eating cheesecake or skipping a workout. One day won't kill you, right?
Right, but it's about the long game. And that's where understanding time as a force comes in, like Olson says. Think about the Grand Canyon. It wasn't carved overnight.
Okay, yeah, good point.
It was formed by the persistent, unwavering force of water, gradually eroding that rock over, well, eons. Time is the ultimate amplifier.
I like that. And on the flip side, sometimes those small margins over time can make all the difference. I mean, talk about a slight edge, Michael Phelps winning Olympic gold by a fraction of a second.
Talk about pressure, but it highlights what Olson is saying, right?
Absolutely. But the good news is, he doesn't just leave us with these big ideas. He gives us practical tools, like his 5 happy habits for success. What do you think about those?
I actually really like that framework, and it's not just some feel-good stuff either. There's actual research behind it.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, take the habit of writing down 3 things you're grateful for each morning. Seems pretty simple, right? But studies show that gratitude is linked to increased happiness, well-being, and even success.
Okay, I'm listening. Sign me up for some of that.
Right. Positive psychology has shown some amazing connections between our thoughts, emotions, and our outcomes.
It's all connected. Now, another thing Olson uses to illustrate his point that really resonated with me is something we all take for granted, learning to walk.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Think about it. We fell down how many times before we mastered it? It's a good reminder that those stumbles are part of the process, especially when you're tackling something new.
It's so easy to get discouraged, but everyone goes through that. And speaking of processes, I think we have to talk about the impact our environment has on our progress.
Oh, absolutely. Olson calls this the law of association, right? We become like the people we spend the most time with.
Exactly. And it's not just our closest friends, but everyone we interact with on a regular basis.
Well, you mean like,
Yeah, if you're constantly surrounding yourself with people who are, say, stuck in a rut or negative, chances are that's going to rub off on you.
totally. Misery loves company or
Right.
something like that, right? But then the opposite is true as well.
Exactly. If you surround yourself with people who are driven, success-oriented, it's like this rising tide that lifts all boats.
I love that. And this whole idea makes you really want to take a close look at your inner circle, doesn't it? Are those relationships empowering you or holding you back?
Such a good point. And what's interesting is that this principle works both ways. Negativity is contagious, but so is procrastination.
Oh, tell me more about that. Because I was really intrigued by Olson's focus on the power of completion. He had this very relatable example about a messy basement.
Oh, yes, the basement.
Yeah.
Classic. It's that room everyone seems to have where they just shove things they don't want to deal with.
The procrastination station.
Exactly. And Olson's point is that just like those small positive actions compound over time, So do small acts of procrastination. That basement didn't get messy overnight,
That's
right?
for sure. You don't wake up to a disaster basement.
At least,
I hope not.
right. And it takes consistent effort to clear that clutter. Just like it takes consistency to achieve those big dreams, which, speaking of, how do we actually take these abstract ideas and turn them into concrete results?
Yeah, how do we do that? How do we harness that compounding effect and make those dreams a reality?
This is where having a plan comes in. Now, don't freak out. I'm not talking about some rigid spreadsheet.
Okay, good, because I am not a spreadsheet person.
Me either. Olson's talking about bringing specificity to your aspirations instead of just saying, I want to be financially free. You define what that actually means to you.
I like that.
Right. Like, how much money is enough? What specific steps will get you there? By when do you want to achieve this? Turning those vague desires into goals with timelines and action steps.
Turning dreams into actionable goals. I like it. But what if you don't have every little detail figured out perfectly?
Ah, yes. The perfectionism trap. Been there.
Because I think a lot of people struggle with that, feeling like they need to have all the answers before they start.
Oh, 100%. And Olson actually tells this great story about building a German sales force.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
And that experience really drove home a valuable lesson for him. You don't need a perfect plan to start. You just need the courage to take that first step.
Just start. I love that. It's so simple, but so true.
The plan often unfolds as you go, and sometimes those unexpected detours, they lead to incredible opportunities you wouldn't have imagined otherwise.
It's like that quote, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Exactly. But with all this talk about achieving our goals and dreams, it's easy to get caught up in seeking external validation, right?
Totally. You're always wondering, am I doing this right? Am I good enough?
And that's why I love the question Olson asks at the end of the book. It's such a powerful way to check in with yourself.
Oh, yeah. What is it?
What do you do when no one is watching?
Whoa. That's deep.
Right. It makes you think. It's about aligning your actions with your values, even when it seems like no one will know the difference.
It's about building that slight edge integrity. I love that.
It really is about recognizing that those seemingly insignificant choices we make when no one is looking, those are the building blocks of who we are becoming.
So powerful and
Yeah.
so relevant no matter what goals you're working towards.
It's like building that foundation of who you are, even when no one's there to give you a pat on the back.
Because at the end of the day, you have to be able to live with yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. And, that really ties into something else Olson talks about that I found super interesting. He's a big proponent of personal development as a key ingredient in success.
Okay, I can see that.
He actually says that most of the time, our income doesn't really exceed our level of personal growth.
Hmm. That's interesting. Like, you have to invest in yourself to see results in other areas of your life.
Exactly. So he suggests dedicating even just a few minutes each day to personal development.
Okay, I like that. I can get behind that. What kind of things does he recommend?
Well, for one, he's a huge advocate for reading at least 10 pages of a good book every single day.
10 pages? That doesn't sound too daunting.
Right. It's one of those things where it might not seem like much on any given day, but those pages add up over time.
Totally. Just like those small actions we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
consistency is key.
100%. And going back to something else we touched on earlier, Olson also talks about the importance of mentorship. Surrounding yourself with people who have already achieved what you're working toward.
Oh, right. The law of association.
Yes. And actually, he tells this really fascinating story about how he ended up building this huge sales team in Germany. And it all started with this chance encounter he had at a trade show in Albuquerque.
Oh, yeah. I loved that story. It just goes to show you, you never know who you're going to meet or what opportunities might come knocking.
It's all about being open to new experiences, right?
Totally. You've got to put yourself out there.
And I think it also highlights the fact that you never know where those connections might lead. It's like that saying, your network is your net worth.
Yeah, so true. But in this case, it's not even just about financial gain. It's more about surrounding yourself with people who push you to grow, to be the best version of yourself.
Absolutely. And sometimes that might mean stepping a little bit outside of your comfort zone, being open to meeting new people or joining a new group or community.
And sometimes it means letting go of relationships that aren't serving you anymore, right?
That is a really good point. And it can be a tough thing to do, but sometimes you just grow apart from people, and that's okay. It's just part of life.
It's about recognizing when a relationship is no longer serving you and having the courage to move on and seek out new connections that are more in line with your current goals and aspirations.
Exactly. And speaking of growth, I have to bring up that basement story
Oh,
again.
the basement, of
Yeah.
course. It really is such a great metaphor.
Right. It's something that almost everyone can relate to. We all have that one spot. Maybe it's not a literal basement, but that space where we shove all the stuff we don't want to deal with.
It's so easy to let those little things pile up.
And that's kind of Olson's point.
It's way less overwhelming that way. And you can track your progress, which is always motivating. But, one thing I struggle with sometimes is that whole perfectionism thing. Like wanting everything to be perfect before I even start.
Oh, I feel you. I'm a recovering perfectionist myself.
It's a process.
Yeah.
But Olson, he doesn't buy into that whole wait for the perfect moment mentality at all. He tells that incredible story
The
about,
German sales team.
yes, it's a classic. And it's such a good illustration of just starting even when you don't have all the answers.
Sometimes you just have to dive in.
Exactly. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need to take that first step.
Yeah.
And often the plan unfolds as you go.
And who knows, sometimes those unexpected detours can lead to some pretty incredible opportunities, right?
Right. It's about being open to the journey, trusting that it might not always go exactly as planned, and that's okay.
Embracing the unknown. I like it. It's about being willing to make adjustments along the way, learn from the stumbles, and just keep moving forward. Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of stumbles, that actually brings us to another really important aspect of the slate edge integrity. Olson talks about the importance of aligning your actions with your values, even when no one is watching.
It's about doing the right thing, even when no one's there to see it. That's true integrity.
Right. It's about making those small choices day after day that build your character and determine the kind of person you are becoming. And that ultimately is what influences your success in all areas of life.
So powerful. And while we're on the topic of integrity and making those small choices, I think it's also important to acknowledge the power of our thoughts.
Oh, absolutely. Our mindset plays such a crucial role. And Olson talks about this too. It's so easy to get bogged down by negativity, especially when things aren't going our way.
But Olson reminds us that our thoughts and beliefs, they really do shape our reality.
It's so true. And he talks about the importance of focusing on what you want to create, not just what you're trying to avoid.
Okay, yeah. Like focusing on the positive instead of dwelling on the negative.
Exactly. That shift in perspective from lack to abundance, it can make a world of difference. And it's not just some woo-woo idea either. There's actually research to back it up.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, he talks about studies that have shown a link between the language people use and their overall health and longevity.
Get out. You mean like people who use more positive language tend to live longer?
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But it makes sense when you think about it. If you're constantly feeding your mind negativity, that's going to take a toll eventually.
It's like that old saying, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
So what can we do about it? How do we shift that internal dialogue?
Well, I think gratitude is a great place to start. Olson talks about this too, just taking a few minutes each day to focus on the good things in your life.
He actually recommends writing down 3 things you're grateful for every morning, right?
Exactly. It might sound simple, but don't underestimate the power of that small act. There's a ton of research that shows practicing gratitude can lead to increased happiness, better relationships, even improved physical health.
Wow, I'm definitely going to have to give that a try. It's like taking those small, consistent actions we've been talking about and applying them to our thoughts and our mindset.
Precisely. Instead of letting those negative thoughts compound, you're consciously choosing to focus on the positive, the things that empower you and move you closer to your goals.
Love it. So we've covered a lot of ground here today, from mastering those mundane daily habits to the power of positive thinking, the importance of mentorship, and surrounding yourself with the right people. But there's one more thing I wanted to touch on before we wrap things up. Olson also talks about the importance of giving back, making a difference in the world.
Oh, absolutely. That's such an important part of the equation, and it doesn't have to be some grand gesture either.
Right. He says even those small acts of kindness can make a huge difference.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that you have the power to make a positive impact every single day, whether it's volunteering your time, donating to a cause you believe in, or even just offering a helping hand to a neighbor in need.
Those little things add up.
They really do. And in a world that often feels so divided, I think those acts of kindness and generosity are more important than ever.
I completely agree. And a good reminder that we're all connected and that even the smallest actions can have a ripple effect. Now, before we go, I think it's important to acknowledge that even with the best intentions, we're not always going to be perfect in our pursuit of these slight edge principles.
Oh, for sure. No one's perfect. Life is messy, and there will be times when we stumble, when we fall off track. It's just part of the journey.
Exactly. And Olson actually has this great analogy to illustrate this point. He compares our journey to that of an Apollo rocket.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. What was it? Those rockets were off course something like 29 minutes out of every 30.
Crazy, right? But they still made it to the moon. It's reassuring in a way, you know?
Mhm.
Even when you're aiming for something as ambitious as landing on the moon, there are going to be course corrections along the way. It's not about being perfect, it's about progress.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that those setbacks, those moments when we get off track, they're not failures, they're opportunities for learning and growth.
Totally. And that's where having a good support system can really make all the difference, right?
Oh, 100%. Having people you can turn to for support, for encouragement, for accountability, it's invaluable.
Whether it's a mentor, a coach, a mastermind group, close friends, family, whatever works for you, having those people in your corner can make all the difference in helping you stay motivated and focused, especially when things get tough.
So true. It's like that African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
I love that. And as we continue on our journeys, pursuing those slight edge principles and striving to reach our full potential, I think it's so important to remember to find joy in the process.
Yes. Enjoy the ride. It's not all about the destination. It's about embracing the journey, all the ups and downs, and finding ways to make it meaningful and fulfilling.
Couldn't agree more. It's about celebrating those small victories along the way, learning from the challenges, and never losing sight of the bigger picture.
Well said. And just remember, it all starts with that slight edge. Those small, seemingly insignificant choices that we make each day.
The ones that, over time, can lead to some pretty extraordinary results.
Exactly. So, what's your slight edge?
I love that. What a great question to leave our listeners with. What small, seemingly insignificant action can you take today that will set you on the path to achieving your biggest goals and living your best life? Choose one thing and commit to it. You might be surprised at the incredible transformation that unfolds.